Hi, this is Catherine. This is Taking Tea with Catherine. This is Taylors of Harrogate. But I put an apostrophe there anyway. Blackberry raspberry tea. I just love it so much. It's like a little celebration in a little teacup. It's not that little though. But it's smaller than my big morning mug. But it's not the morning. Anyway, I thought I'd do another haul. Now, when I say that, in the past week I only bought one book. And I checked one book out of the library, which you shall see shortly. But over the past month or so, I have hauled a number of books, and I decided, okay, I'm going to show them in categories. I'm just going to try to put them in some kind of category here and there, and hopefully I won't repeat any books, but if I do, it won't happen too often, I hope. Because how many categories can you put one book in? Maybe. Anyway, the last one I think I did, besides that brief Strand haul that I did, was the New York based one. So if I have anything here that might overlap with that, it doesn't, but it could, if that makes sense. Anyway, I love biographies, and I do find myself buying more biographies than anything else. I don't know if I read more biographies than anything else, but I certainly like to read biographies. I also like to read mysteries, but I don't think I haul as many mystery novels. I think I mostly check them out from the library, although I do have a pretty decent collection of mysteries. But anyway, today we're talking about biographies, and there's a bit of a variety of lives here. Not extremely varied, but that's okay. I think I will start out, just because it's the one closest to me, with the fanciest looking one, and I saw this in Book Off, and it's just so pretty, and I don't buy books just because they're pretty. The subject matter has to appeal to me too. Sometimes I like books that I can knock around a little bit. But this one is Edith Wharton by R.W.B. Lewis. This was written in the mid-70s, and this is a Franklin Library edition. And I just thought that would be so nice when I finally get back to reading more Edith Wharton. It might be a good way to accompany, or maybe I should read a little more Edith Wharton before I come across spoilers, but at this point I don't know if I care. It depends on the situation and the mood, but this is just so pretty. Again, I gotta stop talking about how pretty it is, but you know what? Sometimes it's nice to buy things that are also aesthetically pleasing, especially since I paid a lot less than probably it would have cost originally, and yet it's in really good shape. Anyway, moving on from that, and here's another book that that's also a biography, and this one I got this week. Got a little tip off from the Bookish Bryants, lovely channel. They mentioned this on, I think, Bookstagram, how this book, I think this book is up for some kind of BookTube prize. I'm not really well versed in prizes. Maybe that'll change one day, but I don't tend to focus on prizes too much. This book was under $4 and on Amazon, and which is an amazing price to pay for a biography that came out last year. Right? I mean, unless it's really bad, but I think if it's up for prizes, then maybe it's good. I don't know. It's Yale University Press. I don't always remember to mention those sort of things, but this is Radical Wordsworth, The Poet Who Changed the World by Jonathan Bate. And I bought a book about Jane Austen and Dorothy Wordsworth. I don't think they knew each other, but just their lives around the same time. I read a lot of books about the Romantic period, but I think I picked up a few more biographies of the poets in recent months, so that's kind of cool. So this will add to my collection. I think I'm only missing maybe Thomas Chatterton, which I don't know if he is actually included with the Romantic poets usually, but I think he might have been a sort of an inspiration. Guy lived till like 17 years old. He wrote all kinds of poems and things that he said that he discovered from some kind of, I don't know if it was a monastery or what it was, but he said he discovered writings from some monk or somebody like that from medieval times, but they were all written by him, which is rather clever. I don't know why he felt that he had to disguise that, but anyway. But then he died quite young. It was very sad. But talk about talented, right? To have influenced so many people, like the Romantics, like Keats, etc. The Pre-Raphaelites. More on the Pre-Raphaelites later. And I think Oscar Wilde actually gave a little talk about him. So, I mean, man, it's a lot. Anyway, someday I'll share with you my the version that someone took a picture of me playing the death of Chatterton, portraying, I don't know. It's not a cheerful thing, but it wasn't that hard to do. So that was fun. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to kind of move between many different types of lives here. This is two books that I've read already, but when the recent adaptation came out of these stories, I realized I only had the first two. Something on my wrist. First two in my library, and I said, "Oh, well, if I ever see the last two, I will get them." And I just happened to see them. So this is James Herriot. It's a biography in a sense. It's a little more of a memoir, probably slightly fictionalized, but that's okay. So this is All Things Wise and Wonderful, and the Lord God Made Them All, with a doggy in the front, which I'm fine with. I like dogs, but I'm kind of like, there were other animals that they work with. Why are they all doggies? But that's okay. I will forgive them because this is a really cute doggy. I gotta stop saying doggy. Here's another book that's not quite biography, but it is about different lives. So it's kind of like a multi-ish, bio-ish history book. I got this for nothing at all at the book exchange near me, which is awesome. It's like a massive little free library. I mentioned it recently, and I think I got this in December, and I thought, hey, this is cool. These are all people that I know-ish, and this is Founding Brothers, The Revolutionary Generation by Joseph J. Ellis. And we have all kinds of people here. We got Washington, we got Jefferson, Franklin, Burr, Hamilton, Madison, and Adams. I think I got all of them. Maybe not quite in the right order, but that's okay. So I'm starting to recognize all of them. I mean, I always recognize the George Washington, because most of my life what I've dealt with is small bills, and Hamilton, and Franklin, but the rest could be a little question. Even Jefferson, even though I recognize him, he's not like first easiest one to recognize. But anyway, so that could be an interesting story. I have another book with a very similar name that I think I haven't finished yet, barely started yet, because this is how I am. Okay. Moving on, there's a number of books here that either I saw someone mention on BookTube, therefore I wanted it. Not every book I see mentioned on BookTube I want, believe me. Otherwise, this would be me underneath like books. But sometimes I'll see a book and I don't necessarily just run out and get it. But if I go to a bookshop like Book Off or something like that and I see it, I'm like, well, hey, I'm going to get it. Especially because when I see it at Book Off, it's going to be discounted in some way. So, yeah. So this is Napoleon, A Life by Andrew Roberts. I'm pretty sure this was Jennifer Brooks had mentioned this because I know she is going through like a whole Napoleon thing right now, which is great because that is a very interesting time period. And I am not like a huge Napoleon person, although I did read a book about him once. Well, I think it was about the women in his life. Something like that. It's been a while. But he influences so much of what I read. I mean, even just Jane Austen. She and her brothers were very much affected by the Napoleonic Wars. And so many people's fortunes were affected by that. And even later classics in the Victorian times often go back to that. Even, hey, I'm reading Sherlock Holmes, I'm not thinking about it at all, but then suddenly the Six Napoleons, or Moriarty is the Napoleon of crime. So, yeah. So I might as well read about him, even though this book seems like it was beat up a little bit. It's not really underlined, but there's a little bit of marking in it, but I'm always shy about even my own books sometimes marking, like writing in them. Even this book, Radical Wordsworth, I'm a little bit like, oh, the pages are so smooth. Do I really want to ruin them with my, my handwriting or something? But I'm like, I could use just a pencil. But anyway, but sometimes when books are ever so slightly used and abused, I feel better about, okay, I could start writing, especially nonfiction. I like to write nonfiction books with a little pencil here and there. So why not? Oh, look at this. Look at what it says here. The American Revolution gave us Washington, but the French got in Napoleon, a man who was Washington, Jefferson, and Madison rolled into one. We're talking about you again. Anyway, so this could be great, and it's a big book. It probably could count as a mammoth for March of the Mammoths, which is next month. So maybe I'll start it. But I have so many big books. Speaking of big books, this is one that I took out of the library, which I'm definitely going to start in March because I just can't right now. But I've heard many good things about it, so yeah. Without further ado, my poor wrists. Red Comet. The Short Life and Blazing Art of Sylvia Plath by Heather Clark. It is very heavy. I will have to hold it in my lap much more when I read it. Yeah, I've seen this mentioned. I think first was Olive, the book Olive, mentioned this book. And I've always liked reading about poets in general, as you can sort of see in writers of biographies, and But I have read actually a couple of books about Sylvia Plath, but this is supposed to be the one biography to rule them all, so. Speaking of which, this is a 3-part biography. Very big, massive, big. But well, this one is not that big. Actually, to me, it's pretty big. It gets close to 700 pages. Anyway, and this is the middle book of the trilogy. So this is a lot to write about one person's life, but you may have seen, if you've watched any of my hauls recently, or any mention of the big books I'd like to read anytime soon, biographies, whatever. That first I got a hold of the last book, and then I found the first book, and then I saw this one, and I said, well, now it's complete, and I really have to start reading it. And that is The Last Lion, also kind of heavy. William Spencer Churchill, Alone, 1932 to 1940, by William Manchester. So I have the set, and I have to start with the first one, and then hopefully I'll like it, because you imagine having all 3 of them and suddenly saying, why did I buy this? Anyway, but I didn't really pay a lot for them, so it's not going to be a big deal. So another book that is rather big, but not a mammoth. But I have seen this on multiple channels recently, and I kept thinking, well, I'm not going to just buy this book, because I'm not like running to buy this book either. But if I see it in Book Off or somewhere like that for a really discounted price, I will buy it. And so I did. And that is Einstein by Walter Isaacson, His Life and Universe. So, I mean, he lives in a very interesting time. So even if he hadn't accomplished what he did in science, which I don't know that much about science, to be honest. I mean, I know a little bit. But anyway, I know E equals MC squared. So there you go. And I know every time I've been in a car with someone who, is behind a bad driver, I've heard this man's name invoked many, many times. So it'd be nice to learn a little bit about his life. So this seems to be enough of his life, right? So hopefully it'll be good. I gotta stop reading when I'm on this channel. All right, so this book I got like a few weeks ago, maybe even December. I don't remember. Either December or very early January, and then I think it was Steve Donahue was talking. Either he was doing a haul or mentioning books or whatever he was doing, and I think it might have been a Brattle, and which is a bookshop that I would love to visit one day. If I ever get back to traveling, I have thought about just doing a weekend in Boston and just hitting the Brattle. Not that I need to, but wouldn't it be nice? But anyway. So anyway, I think he was the one who mentioned this book, but I thought, I know nothing about this person beyond what little references I've read in different English and French history books. So Joan of Arc, A Life Transfigured by Catherine Harrison. And Catherine Harrison sounds very familiar, like I've read stuff by her, but I don't know. Let's see. I should have done this before. But anyway, I'm seeing the books that she wrote, and nothing sounds familiar. Maybe it's just one of those names that just sounds familiar. This is Doubleday. I remember to finally say a publisher again. It came out in 2014. Seems like a good year to write a biography for some reason. I think a lot of the books that I've seen recently have come out in 2014. I don't know why. But, I mean, it's not tremendously large because she like Thomas Chatterton, Chatterton only lived a short time. But hopefully there's enough research, enough material to go by. So now the last but not least are two books that I have read before. And they're both good. Otherwise I wouldn't have gotten copies of them. But I got them for like $1 in Book Off, so, you know, it wasn't a big expense for me. This first one is one that I read. I don't really remember when I read it. It had to have been around about 2013, 2014, or 2015. I don't know. It was before the film that came out of this that was based on this book that Emma Thompson was very much involved in. She's quoted in the front of this book, and it was definitely during my Pre-Raphaelite big phase, although I'm still very much into Pre-Raphaelites. I can't say it, but I'm into it. But this is Effie by Suzanne Fagans Cooper, The Passionate Lives of Effie, Gray, Ruskin, and Millay. I don't think Ruskin was incredibly passionate, but they were married, and it was not a successful marriage, and then Millay was in her life. He's one of my favorite Pre-Raphaelite artists, and a great artist in general. He illustrated Trollope. He made a lot of beautiful paintings. That very famous one of Ophelia, which is also something I did a version of. Like, this is one of my very favorites of Millay's. So make sure it's him. Imagine I'm like, yeah, I love Millay, and this is like Rossetti. But I'm trying to think if there's any other ones I wanted to show you, if they have any here. This book is a little bit dented, so it's not perfect. No, it doesn't seem to show the Ophelia. But I mean, if you hear the word Ophelia and painting, you probably know what I'm talking about if you've looked at paintings online at all. But look it up if not. It's beautiful. So yeah, it was an interesting book, but it's just so weird, that marriage. It was just so weird. But she got her reputation, I know, back a little bit at the ending, because she was able to meet Queen Victoria. And usually you weren't introduced to Queen Victoria if you were scandalous and a woman. Men, I don't know. Anyway, the last book I read in 2005, and I remember that because it was around when I brought home my cat, who is going to be 16 soon. I can't believe it. And I was thinking about naming her after the title of this book. And someone I mentioned it to, and they kind of looked like, why? And then it ended up that I called her Zenobia, and it just fits her so well. It's so perfect. And this name would have actually fit Janie pretty well last year. But anyway, so this is by Paula Byrne. This is Perdita. So this is about the literary, theatrical, scandalous life of Mary Robinson. She was the mistress of the Prince Regent, George, who became George IV. But, you know, once he was done with her, you know, she kind of was on her own. But she wrote novels. I have never seen one of her novels. I don't know if they're in print anywhere, if they've ever been reprinted. If any of you are familiar with Mary Robinson of that time period, of like the, you know, that Regency time period, and you have seen any of her books, please let me know. Or if you've read any of her books, especially, please let me know what you think. 'Cause I don't know if her books were any good or not, but they were popular at the time. I remember this book talking a lot about sensibility and what that was. And so it explains a little bit to me more about what was meant by Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen, you know? So that was pretty cool. She was friendly with William Godwin? I think his first name is William. I always forget people's first names. But anyway, who was married to Mary Wollstonecraft. And she was either, I can't remember now if she was friends with Mary Wollstonecraft or Mary Shelley. But I'm sure I'll find out if I reread this. She was briefly mentioned in Romantic Outlaws, but and I remember seeing her name and I went, oh! And that was it. So it's been so long since I read this book. The reason why she was called Perdita was because that was a part she played in the Shakespeare Winter's Tale. So I guess she became known by that character's name. I had first heard about her by a book by Jean Plady called Perdita's Prince. So I guess you could figure out which prince that was. So, but I don't think she had the happiest of endings, but you know what? she still had somewhat exciting life at some point, and I know I enjoy reading this. I remember where I was when I was reading it and everything. You know how that sometimes you remember more about where you were, at least I do, than I actually remember everything in the book. So I saw that book off a couple of times, and I kept saying, I don't need that, I've read it already. But then I kept seeing it, and I was like, I just want to look at it again, just to see what I remember, because I remember at the time, I was about to name my cat Perdita. I didn't, but, right? It would have been a great name to name Janie. Anyway, she's Janie. So that's it for now. That's a lot of books. It's a lot of reading for me. And I have a sort of like a not definitive goal, but in a way I would like to do this, which is to read one biography a month at least, because I love them so much, but sometimes I end up reading lots of other things. And it's not a bad goal now that I have more biographies. And let me know if any of these, if you read any of them, if you have any interest in them, whatever. Please comment if you have any biographies that are particularly in your interest right now. Like, not just these, but maybe you're currently reading a biography that is just stunning, you know? So that's all for now. If you'd like to talk about biographies as well, please feel free to subscribe. I can't seem to get things out right now, so I better end this video before I get even more tongue-tied. This is Catherine taking tea with Catherine. Have a lovely tea and biography-filled day. Goodbye.